Thousands of conservatives will gather in Denver this weekend for the Western Conservative Summit. So I have gathered this group to talk about the state of conservative politics in the state of Colorado. Republican State Representative Mark Baisley, Roxborough Park, self-described constitutional conservative, and Maher, Nicolais, welcome back to Next. You are an attorney and a columnist. You've argued for some more centrist positions on various issues. So let's dive in. Governor Jared Polis is going to talk at the Western Conservative Summit. He's the first elected Democrat to ever accept an invitation to go and speak. What do you think of that decision?
I received that with real cheer. I think that's a great idea. Dialogue is always good. Dialogue meaning two. I hope it's a two-way conversation. Certainly, we're going to want to hear what he has to say. What would he say to that conservative gathering? But also, I hope he sticks around for some of the other talks and starts to immerse himself a little more in life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness at the same time. So.
I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I think that one of the important things to note is that this is a show of strength from a Democratic governor who thinks that he can walk into a conservative bastion in Colorado. So he must be feeling pretty good about where he is with Coloradans right now. That's what it seems like to me.
So in terms of where the governor stands, a double-digit win, the polling looks pretty good for him, yet there's a recall on, a long-shot recall attempt. Do you think that it's wise for Republicans to spend their money and time trying to recall the governor?
I don't know. That is an awfully tall mountain to climb. I mean, 600,000+ votes. That's what, 10,000 a day or something until the due date. So I'm not a big fan of recalls, only when they're just really deserved. And there's a couple of real deserving. And so if there's any focus on such things, I'd frankly like to see it for constitutional violations in state senators, a couple of those perhaps, but anyway, I'm not big on the governor, but I wouldn't dissuade folks who want to get involved in that, but I won't be participating directly myself.
From my perspective, I think that you look at this, and I'd written a column several months ago that talked about how recalls were the new norm, but a recent column I pointed out that these recalls have been, in my opinion, devastatingly bad for Republicans. That what you're seeing is Democrats who are getting fundraising advantages. They are showing their organizational prowess, their ability to message, and meanwhile you have recalls like the recall against Governor Polis, where you've got three different groups on the Republican side or on the conservative side arguing with each other, spending more time doing that, like Mark said, likely they're not going to get it done. They're probably not even going to come close. And to the extent that people think it's going to help them with organization down the line and gathering the number of people who might be volunteers, they haven't even shown any inclination to leverage that. Meanwhile, Democrats are doing exactly that. So, in my opinion, not only are they a bad call, they're completely counterproductive.
So we've seen some recalls that started and then petered out for various reasons. One against Rochelle Galindo in Greeley. She resigned due to her own misconduct, although I think she denies any misconduct. And then there was the recall against State Rep Tom Sullivan. Right. That one wasn't really going anywhere. Is there a chance that Republicans risk prompting Democrats to tighten up the recall rules in Colorado to make it actual, like, illegal conduct or malfeasance and not just, I didn't like what you did?
Right. Well, there is rumor of such a move, and in particular, in response to Tom Sullivan, a recall attempt, that short-lived one. So yeah, that could very well happen. I hope that it does not, but I also hope that folks don't use that as just a regular way to write the previous election. We just need to have better messaging to the majority of those who cast their ballots that. Hey, the Republican Party and our platform, what we stand for, is closer to natural law. It's closer to what the founders intended and how we best function as a society, not way to the left. So I'd rather do that every 2 years.
As we head into the Western Conservative Summit this weekend, what's the state of conservatism in Colorado?
I think, I think there's a differentiation sometimes between conservatism and republicanism. I think the Republican Party right now is at a very existential crisis situation. I think they are bordering on teetering over into being a California Republican Party, where not only are they not going to win and have any leverage of power, but becoming almost completely irrelevant. And to be fair, I think the one group that can save them from that is the Democratic Party, who, if they go too far to the left, if they create policies that are so far beyond what normal Coloradans have, they might save the Republican Party. That said, I think that there are still a lot of conservatives who do look at either libertarians, or they look at unaffiliateds, or they look at people who might have a more conservative basis in the Democratic Party. I think I differentiate those two things. So I think the Republican Party certainly is in crisis mode. I think there are still plenty of conservatives in Colorado.
What do you think about the state of conservatism in our state?
So I'm going to have to differ with my friend Mario here that I don't believe that we have philosophically much of a rift between the parties. I think there's some getting along that has to happen, but our party platform is as conservative, and it's a national party platform, but it's as conservative as it's ever been. And we talk about the party platform quite a bit. The only danger of us coming looking like California is we could be in a very long-term minority position as a minority party. I hope that's not the case, because folks that move here from other states, they came from a more liberal state, they're leaving what wasn't working for them, they're coming here, and I hope that they, and this will be some messaging from me, and I think the rest of the party is going to be doing this as well, is to just remind them of the uniqueness of Colorado. Let's not turn Colorado into California or wherever you came from. Colorado is a uniquely wonderful place, and it's been rather purple. In fact, 2002, 2004, 2006, it was all Republican, right? And now it's pretty much all Democrat. But we've gone back and forth multiple times, and I hope that we get back to the right quite a bit soon, and I think that's going to happen. Things are looking good for us numbers-wise next year, and just the talk that we hear not only from folks in town halls, but the response, the outpouring of people that show up at the Capitol when the radical bills get passed and get argued. Boy, people on the left, registered Democrats, come out by the hundreds to argue against what their party's been doing. So I'm hopeful.
Coming down to the wire here on time, I'm curious, yes or no, whether you think the attempt to take Colorado out of the National Popular Vote Compact is going to make the ballot. Will it get enough ballot signatures? And do you think that it will win?
I think it will make the ballot. I think it will crash and burn. It will lose by significant numbers.
So you think Colorado will be pulled out of the National Popular Vote Compact, is what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think we will. Yes, right.
I agree. I think it's definitely making the ballot. And I think it's one of those things where the folks who passed it in the legislature were really just answering to a few very liberal groups and liberal funders who had really wanted to see that. And everyday Coloradans, they look at that, and this is a part of conservatism. Doing away with something that our founders put into the Constitution is not particularly something I think a lot of Coloradans want to do. It's not Democrat versus Republican here. It is our Constitution versus the people who want to do away with it. And I think that's why Colorado would actually choose to do away with the national popular vote.
They will give us only 30 more seconds, but I'm curious, in the race against Republican Senator Cory Gardner, which Democrat would you love to see get the nomination, and which one would you hate to see get the nomination? Mario first.
I think that if I had to choose, I would say that I would not want to see Governor Hickenlooper get involved again, because I think he'd be incredibly strong.
Somebody you would like to see get it?
Someone that I would like to see get it. Has anyone declared themselves a socialist yet? Because if they have, I'd like to see that. So.
And Mark, in our closing seconds.
I'd hate to see Governor Hickenlooper. I'd love to see Rochelle Galindo.
Something tells me that Ms. Galindo will not be in the race. Very good. Thank you, gentlemen, both for your time. We hope to have 9 News political expert Kelly Maher at this table. We will get her thoughts later today and include them as well. So thank you both.
Thank you.
The Western Conservative Summit is coming to Denver this weekend, so I'm talking with a number of conservatives in Colorado about the state of conservatism in our state, joined by the 9 News Republican political expert Kelly Maher. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
So
thank us for being here.
Thank both of you for being here.
Yes.
Governor Jared Polis is going to be the first elected Democrat to address the Western Conservative Summit. What do you think?
I think that's great. You know, we had a long-standing tradition for a long time that Democrat governors would go regularly. Hickenlooper was very good at going on the Mike Rosen show. And I think that reaching out across the aisle, you know, we've seen in the past couple of weeks that Jared Polis has been trying to reach across the aisle. He has thus far been rebuffed on this Tabor issue in the hopes of a special session. But realizing that he made a campaign promise to be the governor of all Coloradans means showing up in sometimes uncomfortable rooms, and good for him.
Mario Nicolais, who I was talking to earlier today, said it's a power move by a confident governor.
You know, I mean, look, he realizes that there's kind of these groups out here that are looking at recalls, And right now, what we're seeing on the Republican side is that people, I think, are really arguing more about tactics, whether or not the tactic of the recall is the correct thing to do or not.
What do you think?
In the case of Galindo, it made sense to me.
State rep out of Greeley,
Correct.
She resigned in the face of misconduct.
But she also ran on the idea that she was going to support the economy of her district. I disagreed with the idea of Tom Sullivan, who was a Democrat out of Centennial, who was largely being recalled because of concerns about the Second Amendment, but he ran on it. He said, I am running to pass the red flag bill, and then he did what he said.
It was his #1 issue.
Correct. It was his #1 issue. It is his #1 issue in life. And so I think that we should recall people for going against what they run on versus just not being of our same party.
So as for the recall of Governor Post, do you think it's wise for Republicans to spend time and money on that?
I think that right now the biggest issue we should be talking about is the Taxpayer Bill of Rights and the national popular vote. I think both of those are issues that are good for Republicans to be talking about. They're things that we are on the right side of history on, and they are things that exercise the base. I also think that we need to start talking more about Cory Gardner, because that is going to be the race that everybody's going to be paying attention to.
Do you think that Cory Gardner is fairly described as an underdog in that race right now?
I don't think so.
No, why not?
No, because he is one of the best politicians I've seen out of Colorado in the last 25 or 30 years.
People said that about Mike Kaufman, and then he lost.
They did. And he was a different type of good politician. He went and showed up and did things, but Cory Gardner, he is both bipartisan and yet can speak to people from very different groups, which is exactly, by the way, what Jared Polis is doing this weekend by showing up at the Western Conservative Summit. And in addition to that, I think that right now people are looking for an adult in the room and kind of just a positive message. And to know Cory Gardner is to love Cory Gardner. People are really upset on social media about him right now, but it's very hard to hate somebody up close. And the more that he meets with people, the more they will like him.
I have heard that social media is not necessarily representative of America.
It's weird.
I heard that on social media.
Did you?
In our closing minute here,
Yeah.
What's the state of conservatism in Colorado today?
Well, it's fascinating because everybody is looking kind of at the polling numbers right now, and they're looking at really high approval ratings with Donald Trump within the Republican ranks, but also there's this large group of unaffiliateds that are just ever growing in the state. And ultimately what I think is going to happen is that we need to try to talk to just the Colorado conservatives, because Western conservatives have always been fundamentally different than people we have seen in other states. On the East Coast, on the West Coast, really libertarian-esque.
All right. Kelly, Maher, thank you so much for coming in. I hope both of you have a great weekend.
We might be here this weekend, any minute, literally.
Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
Subscribe to the Next YouTube channel for the best of Next and some other stuff.